Hi, my name is Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. I'm the
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And what a show we have in store for you. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. I know it's not Friday. It is Monday, February the 2nd. But we're going to be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. He surprised us and popped in the studio on Friday when Joe Sempolinski was our guest. Well, we're going to be talking with Phil in the 7 o'clock hour, so make sure you get your questions in. We've already received quite a few, but get your questions in for Phil. A couple comments that came in after the broadcast or right before this broadcast. First up, good morning. Well, good morning. Given the unprecedented chaos prevalent in today's political climate, I think is solely due to foreign influences. What do you think is the cause of this chaos? Well, it could be foreign influences. I think there's a lot of different organizations behind it. The viewer continues, if my assumption is correct regarding this chaos, then I think it is safe to say that the Democrats are heavily invested in and involved with foreign concerns. Thank you very much. Mark writes in this morning. Good morning, Mark. I started watching the Grammys and they said Nicki Minaj was not there. She is still with Trump. So I saw what that was leading to, so I switched the channel discussing how they ruin everything on TV. Yes, everything is political. I guess the Grammys got very political yesterday. You knew that Nicki Minaj, who was once a celebrated star in the music world, now a social pariah because of her endorsement of Donald Trump. But there was one, I guess, standout speech. Country star and rapper Jelly Roll received his first 3 Grammy Awards yesterday night and used his moment to praise Jesus Christ. Now, this is not, I would say, typical of kind of the Grammy scene. He said, I know they're going to try to kick me off here, so just let me try to get this out. First of all, Jesus, I hear you and I'm listening, Lord. Second of all, I want to thank my beautiful wife. I would have never changed my life without you. I'd have ended up dead or in jail. I'd have killed myself if it wasn't for you. And Jesus, I thank you for that. There was a time in my life, y'all, when I was broken. That's why I wrote this album. I didn't think I had a chance. There was days I thought the darkest things. I was a horrible human being. There was a moment in my life where all I had was a Bible this big and a radio the same size and a 6x8 foot sail. And I believe those things could change my life. I believe that music had the power to change my life and God had the power to change my life. I want to tell you all right now, Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is not owned by one political party. Jesus is not owned by no music label. Jesus is Jesus and anybody can have a relationship with him. I love you, Lord. So that is Jelly Roll, not typically a speech that you'd hear in an awards like the Grammys. That's why it is refreshing. A couple quick things to get to this morning. Perhaps you saw Sanford & Son star Grady Demon Wilson. He played Lamont Sanford in Sanford & Son, has passed away at the age of 79 from complications related to cancer. Wilson's son confirmed the news, saying, I loved him. He was a great man. He is survived by his wife, Cicely Johnson, and their 6 children. Wilson was the last surviving cast member from Sanford & Son. And you know the show, which ran for 6 seasons from 1972 to 1977, which followed Fred G. Sanford, played by Red Fox, a junk dealer, and his son Lamont Wilson, who was played by Demon Wilson, who ran Sanford & Son Salvage in Los Angeles. So the last surviving member of Sanford & Son, Grady Demon Wilson, has passed away at the age of 79. Okay, we mentioned Jelly Roll on the opposite side of that coin and what his speech was. I guess Bruce Springsteen performed his anti-ice song in Minneapolis. We had mentioned this last week, the anti-ice song called Streets of Minneapolis. He said, I wrote this song and I recorded it the next day and I sent it to Tom Morello. I think it's kind of soapboxy, according to Morello. Anyway, I don't want to go through all this. But yes, not a surprise. It was Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. Bruce Springsteen performed his anti-ice song in Minneapolis. Quote, sometimes you have to kick them in the teeth. That is the rhetoric that is being pushed. Okay, I don't know how to segue into some of these things, but this is interesting. It seems like the last couple of weeks, just about once a week, we have some type of odd conspiracy theory. At the beginning of the program last week, we told you about the Marines who said that they had saw Bigfoot. Well, a 62-year-old home movie could blow the JFK assassination wide open and prove once and for all there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll. The grainy 8mm footage captured by Dallas air conditioner repairman Orville Nix as bullets ripped through Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963, hasn't been seen since 1978 when it was sent away for analysis by an LA company and later fell under federal ownership, although the feds claim they don't have it. Nix died in 1972 and his granddaughter picked up from her late dad the legal war to recover this film, which she's convinced is worth more than $900 million, as it may hold the key to exposing one of history's biggest cover-ups. Now, a federal judge has ruled that the battle over the film can go forward, and the footage might finally see the light of day. Unlike the famous Zapruder film, showing the moment President Kennedy was shot in the head, Nix's camera was pointed at the infamous grassy knoll, the exact spot where many witnesses thought that shots originated. Conspiracy theorists have long believed the second gunman was hiding behind a fence on the knoll. The Nix film captured First Lady Jackie Kennedy climbing on the back of the president's limo immediately after her husband was shot, and a view of the fence. The film could reveal evidence that gunman Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone, thanks to new optic technology and AI. That's according to Scott Watnick of Wilk Oslander LLP, who is a lawyer for Nix's granddaughter, Linda Gale Nix Jackson. Quote, it's really the only one that is known to have captured the grassy knoll area of Dealey Plaza right as the assassination occurs, said the lawyer. It was probably Let's see. Knowing that the film could bolster a 1978 House Select Committee on Assassinations report that found Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. If we subject the camera original film to optics technology of 2026, we can certainly capture details in the film that we never would have captured before. The committee had the film in 1978. The FBI, in its own 1980 analysis, found inaccuracies in that report, which relied on acoustic analysis to try to pinpoint the location of a potential second shooter. During the last 6 decades, the Nix film has been held by the FBI, news outlet United Press International, Congress, and a private firm called Aerospace Corporation in Los Angeles, which analyzed it and says it handed it back to the National Archives. The National Archives in 1988 said it had only a copy of it, and the legal discovery process set forth by the Court of Federal Claims Judge Stephen Schwartz in a January 15th order gives lawyers a chance to try to force the government to reveal information about its stewardship. The family's case rests on the Fifth Amendment, which states the government shall not take property without providing just compensation in return. And that's perhaps why the daughter believes that the film is worth $900 million. Speaking of Kennedy in a different way, Trump announced at least a 2-year closure of the Trump Kennedy Center for major renovations. The Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington will close on July the 4th in honor of the 250th anniversary of our country, the president wrote in Truth Social. This important decision, based on input from many highly respected experts, will take a tired, broken, and dilapidated center, one that has been in bad condition both financially and structurally for many years, and turn it into a world-class bastion of arts, music, and entertainment. The closure, if approved by the president's hand-picked board of trustees, will produce a much faster and higher quality result and will result in the finest performing arts facility of its kind, according to the president. Contractors, music experts, artists, institutes, advisors, and consultants help weigh whether the marquee D.C. performance venue should be closed or remain partially open during construction. Quote, financing is completed and fully in place, said the president. Trump's announcement comes amid a flurry of performance cancellations since the president ousted the center's leadership and affixed his name to the venue's facade, claiming previous management didn't share his vision for the arts. It's not immediately clear whether performers and performances will be postponed or moved to different venues amid the renovation. The White House and a spokesman for the Kennedy Center did not immediately respond to the New York Post's request for comment. All right, we got a lot to get to this morning. We've got a couple of New York State issues. We've got a lot about Minneapolis. On Friday after the program, we had just missed it by a little bit. Don Lemon was arrested for taking part in that protest in the church. We're going to tell you a little bit about what some are saying about that. Oh, did you go and see Melania? We'll tell you how Melania did over the weekend. We also have a few things here about the government shutdown. What else? Epstein, New York issues. Boy, we got a lot. We're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. Make sure you get your questions in for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. I also want to remind you that today is the Groundhog Day Breakfast for Dinner fundraiser. Ticket prices include pancakes, French toast sticks, turkey sausage, tater tots, and a hot or cold beverage. It's again today from 4:30 till 7 p.m. at the Corning Paint and Post High School cafeteria. You recall our interview last week. It's $10 for a tall stack, $7 for a short stack. Eat in or take out. So make sure you remember the Groundhog Day Breakfast for Dinner is today. All right, let's take a short break. Making a mess here. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Seven reasons to buy certified pre-owned vehicles at Chilson Wilcox Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
7-year or 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
3 months or 3,000-mile maximum care coverage.
Carfax Vehicle History Report.
Car rental allowance. 24-hour roadside assistance.
125-point vehicle inspection.
3-month Sirius XM radio.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
My say is a veteran. He was a combat medic in the Army.
I did tours in Korea, Germany, and Bosnia before I got injured.
There's been a lot of wear and tear on his body.
My knees are bone on bone from doing all those jumps and lugging my backpack and all that gear around. I was also exposed to toxins.
When Yusuf got out of the military, he needed help getting his disability benefits.
Luckily, DAV came to the rescue. They fought for me the same way that I fought for my country.
Every year, DAV provides life-changing support to more than 1 million veterans like Yusuf, helping them get the benefits they've earned so they can achieve victories, great and small.
Now Yusuf is paying it forward. DAV has been instrumental in helping him start 2 healthcare technology companies that are working to help veterans everywhere.
My victory is never giving up and finding more ways to serve.
He's pretty amazing.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
It's going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. A look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. Vladimir Putin has violated Trump's temporary winter truce, killing 5 Ukrainians in overnight airstrikes. Vladimir Putin had told President Trump that there was a deal to briefly pause the war in Ukraine. Well, apparently he reversed on that, killing at least 5 and injuring more than a dozen in strikes across the battered country overnight into Saturday. Moscow continued its relentless assault on Ukraine despite a personal plea from Trump to suspend fighting for 1 week while the war-torn country and its decimated energy infrastructure go through a deadly cold snap that's left millions vulnerable to power outages. Trump said during a cabinet meeting on Thursday, "I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kiev and the cities and towns for a week. It's extraordinarily cold, record-setting cold over there," said the president. He said the Russian dictator had agreed to his request, calling Moscow's response very nice. But Putin's troops launched 85 drones against Ukraine on Saturday, 55 of which, well, were Shahed-type drones. Kiev was spared from the latest attack, but the contested front line region of Donetsk was badly hit. 2 people were killed in the Russian strikes that damaged homes, cars, and heating infrastructure, and 3 others wounded. Close to 200 people had to be evacuated from their homes, including 35 children. So Vladimir Putin violates the temporary winter truce. A couple other breaking stories. You guys are quiet this morning. What's going on? A Democrat scored a rare win in one of Texas's reddest legislative seats on Saturday. Of course, the media is presenting this as kind of a bellwether that this is what's going to happen at the midterms. There's been some polls coming out that make it look like it's not going to be great for Republicans. But they captured a state Senate district that Donald Trump carried by double digits as Republicans struggled to turn out voters in a low participation special election. The Democrat victory could be short-lived with the seat back on the ballot in November's general election. The upset gives Democrats a brief foothold in the deep red district where Republicans have dominated for decades and are expected to mount an aggressive effort to reclaim the seat in November. The winner, Remit's win, driven by unusually low GOP turnout, immediately set off warnings inside Republican circles about voter enthusiasm under the second Trump administration. Democrat Tyler Remit, a leader of the state and local chapters of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union, handily defeated Republican conservative activist Lee Wambsgans with a margin of more than 14 points, according to the Associated Press. Remit told supporters at the victory rally that this win goes to everyday working people. Now, low voter turnout contributed to Remit's upset victory, surprising, given that Donald Trump weighed in to support Wambsgans. Trump won the district in 2024 by 5 points, but lost it to Biden in 2020 by less than 1 point. Trump called the Republican activist a successful entrepreneur and incredible supporter of MAGA. Trump's influence was offset by massive support from Democrats and other national organizations, including the DNC and Vote Vets, a veteran group that said it spent $500,000 on ads. So there you are. Oh, by the way, AOC, speaking of the left, AOC's getting a little criticism from the far left, her group, because she has yet again endorsed a moderate Democrat for the midterms. Socialist Squad member, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has endorsed a second moderate Democrat in 10 days for the midterms. And some of her comrades at the Democrat Socialists of America are disgusted that she appears to be on, quote, and I quote this, the same path as Pelosi. Who is this? One DSA member said, I think it is patently obvious that AOC is a career opportunist. Ooh. Drawing comparisons to a young California representative, Nancy Pelosi, who once advocated for taxpayer-funded universal health care, only to move to the center as her nearly 4-decade career progressed. Now, keep that in mind. That's where the Democrat Socialists of America are, and the Democrats in general, that Nancy Pelosi is considered a moderate. Keep that in mind. Given AOC's mental gymnastics for aid to Israel, her backing Biden long after it was obvious he couldn't run, and now her backing Julie Johnson, I see no reason why she isn't on the same path as Pelosi. I definitely think we need to cut ties with her, one member of the DSA said, Democrat Socialists of America. She was referring to the Queens lawmaker endorsing Representative Julie Johnson in the heated race for Dallas's redrawn 33rd district, just weeks after throwing her formidable war chest behind pro-gun, drill baby drill, Mary Pelota, who's running for U.S. Senate in Alaska. AOC saying in a video endorsing Johnson, we can't let the GOP gerrymander one of the strongest fighters out of Congress. Julie Johnson is standing up every day in Congress to combat ICE overreach, MAGA extremism, and to stand up for freedoms of Texans everywhere. I'm supporting Julie in her run, and I hope you will too. But Johnson's record, which includes a vote early this month for $3.3 billion in military aid to Israel, has pushed national DSA lefties to the brink, with members openly questioning whether AOC violated the party's anti-Zionist resolution and warrants expulsion. So she could get kicked out of the DSA because of the anti-Zionist resolution. Johnson has been called out for actively trading stocks in AI giant Palantir, a company that's helped the Trump administration track and deport illegal migrants. Angry members suggested AOC is moving to the middle and generating goodwill with the Democrat Party to boost herself for future races. Now, there's been speculation that she'll run the next go-around against Chuck Schumer if Chuck Schumer decides to keep running or retire. So she could be the senator from New York. Or, of course, there's been a lot of talks, and she's played right into it, about her running for president. One DSA attendee said her hopes to replace Chuck Schumer or even run for president have led her to the dreaded campaign advisors aristocrats, who, as always, are telling her to shift right. The National DSA already revoked AOC's endorsement back in 2024 because she voted in favor of a resolution reaffirming Israel's right to exist. But she continues to be endorsed by the local New York City chapter. AOC may be strategizing for higher office, according to pundits. She is trying to demonstrate leadership in a very Nancy Pelosi way, and she's like, who can win? Said Lana Exon, a political scientist at Florida State University. She wants to show she's willing to put the party first, party over ideology. And that is sort of a step into a more moderate version of herself, so political expediency. Interesting. Turning on AOC, the Democrat Socialists of America, turning yet again on AOC because AOC apparently is too moderate. So when we were talking with Joe Sempolinski and Phil Palmisano on Friday's show, and I said if you look at the numbers of people that are registering as DSA, it's pretty terrifying. Because think of how radical the DSA is, but they believe that they have kind of this wind on their back. They believe that they're really riding high because of Zohran Mamdani's win in New York City. Speaking of Zohran Mamdani's win, Andrew Cuomo, who was defeated by Mr. Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo lands a new gig after his bruising loss in the mayoral race. The ex-governor has landed a weekly Sunday radio show on 77 WABC radio. Cuomo's one-hour program will be called The Pulse of the People and will air its inaugural episode at 5 p.m. Sunday. So that would have, I actually saved this out yesterday, so it would have already aired. A source close to the deliberations said Cuomo won't be receiving compensation so he can speak his mind and avoid conflicts. Quote, "This is a moment when our country has rarely felt more divided, politics more polarizing, and public discourse more toxic," Cuomo said in a statement. Pulse of the People is about cutting through the noise and rancor to have real, substantive, fact-based conversations about the issues that actually affect people's lives. I've spent my career focused on making government work and getting results, and that's the same straightforward problem-solving approach I'll bring to this program. WABC owner John Castamadis said the show will focus on listener calls and open discussions about the issues, concerns, and views of New Yorkers. WABC believes in bipartisan conversation and thoughtful discussion of solutions, and we invite listeners to tune in and be a part of that discussion. Cuomo will be taking calls from viewers after giving opening remarks. It's the first major public move by the Democrat since his failed comeback bid for mayor last year, losing to Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Remember, he thought he was so kind of cocky that he didn't have to campaign in the primary, and it ultimately led to the rise of Zohran. The Post reported last month that Cuomo and Castamadis were in discussions about hosting the radio gig, and he has signed on to be on 77 WABC radio. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about Melania, the movie. Did you happen to see it this weekend? Did you go out to the theaters? If so, I would love your review. We're going to show you what some of the media have had to say about it. We also have quite a few things about Don Lemon being arrested for being a part of that protest at the church. We'll tell you about that as well. So stay with us. We're just getting warmed up here because it's awful chilly out. But we do have something than Phil Palmisano coming in the 6 o'clock hour, in the 7 o'clock hour. He'll be joining us, so make sure you get your questions in ahead of time for that. We also have a little clip from Phil that he sent in that we may have an opportunity to play here in just a little bit. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Foster's, your destination for both essential classics and new sensory journeys. Looking for something smooth and velvety? Or long and satisfied? With a savory, spicy finish? With a regionally recognized bourbon section? Let us be your guide. Foster's, elevate your spirits.
At the Corning Painted Post High School Learning Center, we provide students with a variety of community-based and academic opportunities and a fresh start. Located on the Corning Community College campus, students earn high school credits and gain real-world experiences through community service, internships, art partnerships, and work opportunities, experiences they value for a lifetime. Our students find a place to reconnect and succeed. The Corning Painted Post High School Learning Center, turning fresh starts into future success.
It's going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. And look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
In Albany, Buffalo, was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day one of the National Glider Competition.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So Melania, The First Lady's film racked up the biggest opening for a documentary in a decade. The documentary on the First Lady, directed by Brett Ratner, debuted to $7 million, surpassing recent hits like the 2024 documentary Am I Racist?, which opened to $5.4 million, according to Deadline. The Amazon MGM Studios' $75 million production is on track to be the best performing non-fiction feature for 10 years. Melania tweeting out, Melania, the film's #1 highest opening in 10 years documentary, loved by all. A cinema score, she wrote. Older women made up the majority of the audience, with 72% of the opening day tickets going to females aged over 55. Theaters outside the Northeast and West Coast saw an outsized portion of the demand, with 46% of tickets in its first weekend. Arizona, Florida, Texas were the top ticket buying states. The movie, which was widely trashed by liberals who shared images of empty movie theaters in New York City, LA, and Washington, D.C., covers the 20 days in the First Lady's life leading up to the president's second inauguration in January of 2025. It is expected to finish third in total box office takings for this week, behind horror movies Iron Lung and Send Help. Amazon spent an estimated $35 million on global marketing for the movie, which makes it the most expensive documentary in history. But they are calling it a face-saving debut that overperformed the expectations. No one saw that coming, with many suggesting Melania was a bomb before it even opened, based on empty or nearly empty seat maps in cinemas across the country, said The Hollywood Reporter. Exhibitors were so convinced, based on sluggish ticket sales and an endless stream of social posts showing auditoriums where only a smattering of tickets have been sold. It's hard to remember a non-concert documentary that's been so scrutinized in terms of its opening numbers. Melania's 20 Days to History is proving the haters and losers wrong. The Brett Ratner-directed documentary, chronicling 3 weeks in the life of the incoming First Lady, has overperformed expectations, said the Rolling Stones magazine. Variety reported the film was eclipsing box office expectations, while Deadline claimed Melania had crushed it exactly where she was supposed to, in red areas, despite concerns about a great deal of juicing at the box office. The New York Times called the numbers a face-saving result for the First Lady, after initial predictions placed the film at only $5 million, though it contextualized the sizable opening. On Saturday, analysts projected roughly $8 million in domestic ticket sales for the nearly 2-hour film. The actual amount, $7 million, suggests the opening day was front-loaded with Mrs. Trump's fans, said the New York Times. Now, of course, the media can't all be positive. Brian Stetler from CNN said that the film fell well short of turning a profit. The documentary is on track to earn about $7 million in its opening weekend, with ticket sales reflecting a familiar red-blue divide in America. Melania is projected to be the best performing documentary of its kind in a decade, a takeaway that the First Lady trumpeted in a post on X. By financial standards, the film is not a winner, at least not yet. The company that financed it, Amazon MGM Studios, still has a long way to go to break even. On Sunday, Kevin Wilson, the head of domestic theatrical distribution for the studio, said, "We are confident in the long-term value this rollout will deliver to customers both in theaters and for years to come on Prime Video." Amazon paid $40 million for the rights to Melania and committed another $35 million in marketing. The exorbitant spending led Amazon's industry rivals to speculate that the studio was trying to curry favor with the Trump administration by paying the First Lady millions of dollars. According to the Wall Street Journal, the First Lady's cut is more than 70% of the $40 million, or at least $28 million. The Daily Show host, Desi Lick, phrased it as a question, saying, "Why would Jeff Bezos, a billionaire who has tons of business with the government, run by a famously corrupt president known for loving bribes, overpay for a Melania documentary?" That passes for humor on The Daily Show, and that's why Brian Stetler loves it so much, to quote it in his piece. Theatergoers said they did love it. The documentary received an A grade through CinemaScore, an industry standard survey of theater patrons. The A grade was in stark contrast to the critical consensus, professional reviewers who weren't given a chance to screen the film in advance have panned Melania as a vapid infomercial. Rotten Tomatoes, which aggregates film reviews, found only 11% positive reviews as of Sunday morning. Melania is not really a documentary at all, but rather a reality TV special that preaches to the faith, said the Bulwark culture editor, Sonny Bunch. Bunch called it fascinating to see so pure and naked an instrument of graft and propaganda deployed to great effect on an audience happy to lap it up. Matt Labash says, is Melania the worst film ever made? Maybe, but it's definitely the worst film I've ever seen, said Matt Labash. Now that every critic and their mom has taken vicious whacks at the fake documentary Melania, as if it were the Village Piñata, allow me to start off by saying something nice. I've always felt a certain kinship with Melania Trump. We were born within a month and a half of each other, both under the Chinese zodiac sign of the dog. She's from Slovenia. My paternal great-grandmother was from Russia. I like supermodels. She used to be one. We both appear to detest her husband. I've been a bit more vocal about it. Okay, the end of the niceness. As I was sitting in my local multiplex last Friday with 8 lonesome weirdos, I was there for work, but this was presumably their idea of fun. I thought that surely someone out there must have had a cinematic experience that I was having. Maybe the poor souls who went to see The Dark Knight Rises at the fateful Century 16 midnight screening in Aurora, Colorado back in 2012. Wow. Comparing it to a mass shooting. Anyway, I don't want to go through all this. It's perhaps unfair for me to call Melania the worst film ever made, since I haven't seen every film ever made. But I have seen Porky's 3, Police Academy, and many Rob Schneider vehicles, so you know I mean business when I say the worst film I've ever seen. Unless you think I'm an outlier, it's the worst film a lot of other people have seen too. Of course, the hatred for Trump knows no ending. So it even is put on to Melania. When we come back, we're going to wrap up our discussion on Melania with a piece by Miranda Devine. So stay with us. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we will be right back.
From exceptional member service to easy, reliable, and secure digital banking and a deep commitment to the communities we call home, First Heritage is proud to be part of our members' everyday lives. That's why we're honored to be named Best Credit Union in the Twin Tiers 5 years in a row and Best Locally Owned Business in 2025. To our members, thank you for your trust, your loyalty, and your votes. And if you're not yet a member, visit fhfcu.org or stop by your local branch and see for yourself what makes First Heritage the best.
Can you help me?
Mom, Dad, we're going out.
Thank you.
Oh, look, they're playing chess.
What you got there?
Will you help my mom?
She's real sick, huh? Hey, crew, I'll give the first move to anyone who signs up to be an organ donor. How do you do it?
Easy. Just go to organdonor.gov.
You heard him, organdonor.gov.
More donors means more hope. Sign up at organdonor.gov.
It's going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. A look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comments from viewers. Wow, TDS runs deep among the shallow-minded. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. A lot of people won't go to the theater anymore, especially when they know it's going to be on Prime. I don't go to the movies. It's not worth the money. I can watch it from the comfort of my home a little bit later, and the popcorn is cheaper. Thank you very much. Miranda Devine said, in a big blow to the Trump-deranged community, Melania Trump's movie knocked the lights out on its opening weekend. It came in at number 3 overall, and its $7 million box office takings in 3 days is almost unheard of for a documentary. Melania is crushing it on Rotten Tomatoes, too, with a 99% audience score on the Popcornometer. I don't know what that is. Like everything to do with Donald Trump's 2 presidencies, whether the left's media's opinion, the American public thinks the opposite. The inverse mediaometer is one of the most reliable gauges of public sentiment in this country. To say that Melania would be I got cut off here. It's a shameless infomercial, said the Hollywood Reporter. The First Lady is a, quote, preening, scowling void of pure nothingness in this ghastly bit of propaganda, said the Independent. The Guardian trashed the movie as gilded trash and 2 hours of pure, endless, we'll say heck. Haters are going to hate, said Miranda Devine. But that's not what the 99% of viewers said in hundreds of glowing audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Absolute class act documentary. Highly, highly recommended. Deborah T. wrote, such a pleasure to see real class return to the White House. She is so classy, passionate, and truly the most accomplished woman and First Lady ever, wrote Susan. A view of the First Lady that the new network media and national publications refuse to acknowledge. Melania Trump is circumspect, a useful quality to have in Slovenia while it withered within the repressive Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, but perhaps equally valuable in today's political landscape, wrote the legal aid. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because she tells you a little bit about the various scenes in the movie. The documentary comes across more like a lush extended music video with crowd favorites like the Rolling Stones' Give Me Shelter, which underscores the opening scene, a close-up of Melania's stilettos as she clip-clops across marble floors. From a woman who curates every aspect of her life to the finest detail, there is no doubting she wants us to make Mick Jagger's words take him literally. A storm is threatening my very life today, as she steps into a limo en route to her life as First Lady. Like her husband, Melania seems to like to communicate through music. Beyond the in-jokes and glamorous scenes, the movie has serious intent. Over footage of Trump swearing in at the Capitol, Melania says people wanted to murder him, incarcerate him, and slander him. And here he is. I'm so proud. The camera pans to her standing nearby with 2 Bibles, tall and strong, in a severe dark navy coat dress and matching flat-brimmed hat that shades her eyes. I don't want to go through all this. Theaters in Manhattan and Los Angeles might have been empty over the weekend, but there were sold-out crowds in Dallas, Orlando, Tampa, Phoenix, Houston, Atlanta, West Palm Beach, Fort Myers, Miami, Minnesota, Nashville, St. Louis, Las Vegas, and Cleveland. And they loved what they saw, with Deadline reporting that exit reports for Melania were on A on CinemaScore, 5 stars on Screen Engine Post-Track, and an 89% definite recommend, unheard of for any movie. The First Lady made a reported $20 million plus for her input and has launched a personal brand, which likely is worth many multiples of that in the future. You can tut-tut all you like about The Office, but those eyeballs are lapping up every moment of Melania could have been had for free by the news media if they hadn't been so unjust for her. Melania is their just dessert. Yes, if they would cover her more, put her on covers of magazines, they could have benefited from that, but instead, just like with her husband, they choose to attack. By the way, Mike Johnson is confident that the government shutdown will end tomorrow, that the partial government shutdown will conclude by Tuesday, despite snarls and Democrat leadership declining to guarantee critical votes. The government entered a partial shutdown at midnight Saturday after Senate Democrats decided at the last minute to rebuff a bipartisan funding deal that had been in the works demanding reforms to ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Speaker Johnson saying, let's say I'm confident that we'll do it at least by Tuesday, he told Meet the Press yesterday. No one wanted to put that pain on the American people again. The Democrats forced it. We were insistent that we would not allow that to happen. Republicans are going to do the responsible thing. The dynamic of the current government shutdown is very different from the 43-day record-breaking one last year when the two sides deadlocked for weeks without a clear path out of it. Last month, the House passed a bundle of 6 funding bills to keep the government open for the duration of the fiscal year. Senate Democrats rejected that in the wake of Border Patrol shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. Instead, a deal was struck to pass 5 of those 6 bills and essentially put the 6th one, which covers the Department of Homeland Security, on autopilot for 2 weeks to allow negotiations to play out. Because the House was out of Washington last week on recess, it was unable to pass that new $1.2 trillion deal. Congress previously passed the other 6 of the necessary 12 appropriation bills to fund the government. As a result, operations not covered by those bills have been forced to shut down. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has demanded that the Trump administration tighten its use of warrants, end roving patrols, enforce better accountability on immigration officers, force masks off officers, and use body cameras. Johnson said that requiring masks off and agents to wear some form of ID are unacceptable demands, recounting a conversation border czar Tom Homan had with Schumer, telling him that it wasn't acceptable. Those 2 things are conditions that would create further danger, Johnson told Fox News. Some of these conditions and requests that they've made are obviously reasonable, and some happen, but others are going to require a lot more negotiation. Already, Trump has begun adjusting his crackdown on Minnesota under Operation Metro Surge, tapping Tom Homan to be the point person, with the border czar revealing plans to draw down federal personnel. Despite those overtures, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries privately told Johnson that he can't guarantee Democrat support for the compromise deal to reopen the government. Publicly, he's been non-committal. A particular concern for Republicans is that Democrats won't assist in fast-tracking passage of the funding deal via a process known as suspension of the rules, which requires a 2/3 vote. Given the likely GOP defections and a threadbare majority, the Speaker will need dozens of Democrats to get it across the finish line through the process. Because that is likely to fail, Johnson is expected to turn to the more time-consuming traditional process and try to wrangle it through the House Rules Committee before taking it to the floor. The Rules panel is set to weigh the government funding deal on Monday, today. Johnson saying, "We have a logistical challenge of getting everyone in town, and because of the conversation I had with Hakeem Jeffries, I know that we've got to pass a rule and probably do this mostly on our own." I think that's very unfortunate. Now, I guess facing some of this backlash, Trump has called Schumer to cut a deal. The president and the top Senate Democrat, who are often at each other's throats, according to the New York Times, agreed to try to keep the government open and to start talks on new limits on federal immigration agents. This came out on Saturday. Schumer said in an interview that Trump called him and said, "Chuck, I hate shutdowns. I don't like shutdowns. We've got to stop them." And I said, "Well, Mr. President, the thing is you have to do is to rein in ICE." All right, enough on that. By the way, a pair of Senate Republicans are pushing their House counterparts to reject the Trump-backed shutdown deal unless it includes Homeland Security funding and election integrity legislation. Senators Rick Scott from Florida and Mike Lee from Utah are calling on House Republicans to push back against the Senate-passed funding package, which includes bills to fund 5 agencies, including the Pentagon, as a partial government shutdown continues. They contend that the package needs to be retooled and must include a modified version of the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility Act, dubbed the Save America Act, and the Homeland Security Funding Bill, which was stripped out after Senate Democrats threatened to blow up the government's funding process. Doing so could extend what was expected to be a short-term shutdown. Scott said congressional Democrats would never fund DHS and ICE. He voted against the package twice, arguing that the spending levels would further bloat the nation's eye-popping $38 trillion national debt, and the billions in earmarks betrayed Republicans' previous vows of fiscal restraint. All right, we got to take a short break. Couple of things we need to get to. Don Lemon. Are we going to have time to talk about that? Well, hopefully. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselsen's in Amara Heights. At Hesselsen's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselsen's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselsen's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amira Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. And look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselsen studio. Comment from a viewer, just a late blooming thought, Frank. The hopefully temporary loss of the seat in Texas should be a wake-up call for all Republicans that they need to get out and vote and not to be complacent about doing so. Yes, the midterms specifically, we need to see enthusiasm. We need to see Republicans getting out and voting if they want to keep the House. Now, Don Lemon was arrested on Friday for his participation in that protest on the church. Representative Jasmine Crockett, a star in the Democrat Party. Somehow I got on her press releases. She sent 3 separate letters in response to the arrest of journalist Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, escalating demands for accountability across multiple levels of the Department of Justice. The letters were sent to Pam Bondi, Jim Jordan, and William Bleer. In her letter to the Attorney General, Representative Crockett demanded the immediate release of Lemon and Fort and that all charges against them be dismissed, citing serious constitutional concerns and warning that arresting journalists for their reporting is a direct assault on the First Amendment. In a separate letter to the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Representative Crockett formally requested a congressional investigation into the arrest, emphasizing Congress's constitutional obligation to conduct oversight and ensure that federal law enforcement is not being misused for political purposes. Crockett saying, a constitutional crisis exists when the government uses its power to suppress speech, punish criticism, or target journalists for doing their job. The arrest of Don Lemon and Georgia Fort raise serious constitutional concerns that demand immediate action. The Department of Justice must not be used to retaliate against perceived political opponents or to shield those in power from accountability. That is why I'm demanding their immediate release, congressional oversight, and a full investigation by the DOJ Inspector General. Well, the New York Post editorial board puts it this way. Activist Don Lemon is not the journalism hill for the liberal media to die on. Don Lemon's arrest for invading a St. Paul church as part of an anti-ICE protest has his left-wing media pals pontificating about the First Amendment, calling it an attack on journalism and fascism in America, ignoring the fundamental fact that a press card isn't a license to break the law. Boasting that you're, quote, committing journalism as you hold a mic doesn't immunize you from arrest and prosecution for joining with an ugly mob to harass a congregation on private property, which is exactly what Don Lemon did. Lemon joined the band of resistance protesters who disrupted Sunday services at City's church, telling his camera that they were planning on operation that we're going to follow them on, and we will do this operation, you'll see it live. He smirkingly announced the purpose of Operation Pull-Up was to surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. The feds arrested him for violating the FACE Act, which prohibits the use or threat to force to interfere with religious observation at a place of worship. That's plainly what Lemon did, as he smugly told the bewildered pastor of the church that the mob's freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest trumped the congregation's right to worship God in peace, and browbeat the minister demanding answers to his questions. Now, of course, no one has a right to speak, assemble, or protest on someone else's private property. And calling yourself a reporter as you join in an illegal action doesn't give you a get-out-of-jail card. Lemon is no different from Antifa agitators who riot while holding a cell phone and call themselves press or legal observers, or have some bandages in a backpack and call themselves medics. This ruse, not so far from having Hamas operatives wear press vests, helps goons move in and out of active rioting while maintaining deniability as their true role. After St. Paul's stunt, Lemon bashed the entitlement and white supremacy of the city's church congregation, whining that, quote, being a gay black man in America makes him a target for persecution by forces of repression. He's a wealthy man claiming that supposed victim status and a false sense of moral superiority give him some excuse to lord it over normal folks. Genuine freedom of the press is vital to American life and to the New York Post's work. That makes it all the more important that people like Don Lemon pay real consequences, for trying to turn the trade into a privilege that somehow trumps the rights of every other citizen. We got to take a short break. Wow. This program's moving fast. Stay with us.
An albino baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day 1 of the National Glider Competition.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Yeah, hello. I'm really not sure if this is what you all do, but I really don't have anywhere else to turn.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
My kids are out of state. My buddies from the Army are all gone now. I'm really alone.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I miss so much time with her. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck.
Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called.
Okay, sir. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. One thing I want to mention, because we're going to be talking with Phil Palmisano here in the 7 o'clock hour, but you may have seen this bill being proposed by Governor Hochul, the Local Cops Local Crimes Act. Well, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, and we're going to talk with Phil about this in a little bit, but Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski weighed in on it over the weekend, saying it's completely inappropriate for Governor Hochul to attempt to prevent local and county law enforcement agencies and the government they represent from deciding what is the best interest of their own communities. Barring local law enforcement from working with federal immigration officials makes New York less safe. Don't be fooled. This proposal has more to do with courting the governor's base during an election year than it has to do with ensuring public safety. Thank you to Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. If you missed our interview and the surprise appearance by Phil Palmisano on Friday's broadcast, you can find that at our YouTube page. We covered a lot on Friday morning, that's for sure. All right, we got a couple things, depending on what time the Assemblyman comes in. I will say this: ICE arrests over 650 illegal aliens across West Virginia with state and local police backing. ICE said in a press release Sunday that the operation ran from January 5th to January 19th and involved 14 federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. Now, do I have time for this? Probably not. But praise, condemn, or abolish ICE. The New York's governor's race candidates fall into these three distinct camps in the national clamor after what happened in Minneapolis. At one end is Republican Bruce Blakeman, who has stood firm in support of ICE since agents shot 37-year-old protester Alex Preddy on January 24th. He cast blame elsewhere in his immediate response to Preddy's death, accusing Democrat leaders, including Governor Hochul, of incitement against the rule of law. Hochul has blasted back at Blakeman for his staunch ICE defense and the close ties he forged with the agency at Nassau County. I don't know what planet he's on, Hochul told reporters. Is he not paying attention to the fact that the world has shifted rapidly? And to Hochul's left is her Democrat primary challenger, Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, who is saying unequivocally that ICE should be dismantled. Hochul has proposed steps in her budget to restrict ICE activity and hold agents accountable, but hasn't joined the calls to abolish ICE and has steered clear of other proposals that Delgado fully supports. Blakeman casts that collaboration very differently. In a January 27th podcast, he boasted that Nassau's agreement with ICE was the broadest of any U.S. county and credited that work with improving public safety in his heavily populated Long Island County. In just the last month, he said the collaboration led to the removal of 47 undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Quote, I believe that ICE is doing an excellent job. What's going on in Minneapolis is a travesty. It's paid protesters. They're anti-American. They don't share American values. They're trying to keep people in this county or in this country that have no business being here. All right. That is it for hour number one. Hour number two, mere moments away. Comment from a viewer. Hochul does not have the legal authority to order local PD to not cooperate with ICE. These idiots need to learn what the supremacy clause is. Thank you very much. On that note, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Suburban Propane is here for your residential and industrial propane needs. Serving the surrounding area for over 95 years, we take pride in our reliable delivery service with 24/7, 365 emergency service answered by company representatives. Call today to start your Suburban Propane service.
Kids aren't only ones drowning in social media, but teens are definitely the most attached to their phones, which is not all good. Kids who spend too much time texting and posting are more likely to feel isolated and depressed. No one is saying throw your phone away, but once in a while, try actually calling somebody. Talking is even more social than social media. For more clues on how to clear your head and brighten your outlook, try visiting one more site, yourlifeyourvoice.org.
It's going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. And look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
And we welcome you to hour number two of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, so you do not want to miss that. I also want to remind you that it's the 9th annual Groundhog Day Breakfast for Dinner fundraiser. It is being held by the Rotary Club of Corning. We interviewed them last week, but that is tonight from 4:30 till 7 p.m. at the Corning Painted Post High School cafeteria. So don't miss the Rotary Club's Groundhog Day Breakfast for Dinner. Just $10 for a tall stack, $7 for a short stack. Comment from a viewer: I can't wait for ICE to turn its attention to New York City. Should be very interesting to see Hochul put in her place, as well as Zohran Mamdani. Speaking of Hochul, George Pataki, remember the ex-governor George Pataki? He says that Hochul will raise New York's taxes after the election. He predicted even, that the dithering Democrat who is seeking a second full 4-year term will resist Zohran Mamdani's socialist demands to hike taxes on the city's wealthiest, at least for now. But all bets are off after the election, the 3-term ex-governor said, noting that Hochul ditched the hated congestion toll to enter the Manhattan business district in June of 2024 before then directing the MTA to ramp through the $9 toll after the election. So we've talked about this in the past. She is governing in a very different way than she will if she is victorious in November. Pataki said she's going to tell him no, meaning Zohran Mamdani, between now and November because this is an election year. But as soon as November is over, if history with how she acts is any guide, the legislature and she are going to say, okay, too bad, but yes, go raise taxes. It will be a disaster. That's what happened with congestion pricing. Oh, we're going to halt congestion pricing. And then right after the election, we had congestion prices, George Pataki said. Pataki, who slashed state income taxes while in Albany, was the last Republican elected to statewide office all the way back in 2002. He said the mere discussion of tax hikes could be enough to persuade more New Yorkers to flee to Sunbelt states that have no state income tax, such as Florida and Texas. Not only do we have the second highest tax burden in the country, but now Mamdani is proposing massive tax increases on successful people in New York. If that is allowed to happen, it's going to be a catastrophe. He said he's very concerned and really worried about the Empire State's future. The state budget is out of control. Wall Street has had a good year, so Albany has money. What does Hochul do? Massive increases in spending. We have so-called temporary taxes that were passed in Albany 10 years ago that are supposed to be phased out. So long as Hochul and the Democrats run Albany, they're not going to be phased out. They're going to be here forever. My fear is that it's going to get worse. Now, Hochul's office did fire back. We want to give both sides here. Unlike Governor Pataki, who made devastating cuts to programs New Yorkers depend on, like school aid and public transportation, Governor Hochul's budget will make record investments in critical services without raising income taxes on any New Yorkers. New Yorkers can trust that Governor Hochul will continue delivering on her affordability agenda that includes a substantial child tax credit, no tax on tips, and a record middle-class tax cut that will deliver nearly $1 billion in tax relief to more than 8.3 million New Yorkers beginning this year. Now, the New York Post editorial board, and if you're not familiar, the New York Post has now expanded to California. They have the California Post. Perhaps the sickest thing about the rapid decline of blue states like New York and California, each rapidly shrinking in comparison to the rest of the country, is that the Democrats who dominate their governments can't be bothered to stop the bleeding, but only to ensure their own turf remains whole. A new analysis by reapportionment expert Jonathan Curvis suggests internal migration in advance of the 2030 census will cost New York 2 House seats and California 4. Texas and Florida would gain 8, dramatically shifting political power and federal funding away from the deep blue strongholds. Of course, the Empire State has been shrinking for decades, while the Golden State was gaining until 2000, with its House delegation shrinking for the first time ever after the last census. Yet the progressive Democrats who fully control both state governments show zero sign of reversing their high tax, prodigious spending, crushing regulation ways. Their only response is to gerrymander ruthlessly so that their party retains its House seat count. As long as it's mostly Republican voters who flee, they might even applaud the exodus. So California, if you want to lose your future, just look at New York, which has been losing ground for nearly a century, losing House seats every single 10-year census starting all the way back in 1940. It's now down to just 26 from 45 in the 30s and looking at 24 in 2013, or 2031, if the math proves true. Fine. The early part of that decline had a lot to do with the climate, as air conditioning made life in many parts of the country far more tolerable. You can leave the land of near-zero winter temperatures and brutal snowstorms without melting in the summers. But California's climate remains as perfect as ever, yet it's It's staring at a drastic drop come 2030. Its House delegation shrinking more than 10% in just 2 decades. Without a doubt, the two states' increasingly left-wing policies explain that shared decline. Democrat policies raise the cost on just about everything, warns Upstate United's Justin Wilcox. New Yorkers pay more tax per capita than any other Americans. California is racing to catch up after taking a hard left turn in the late 90s. Progressive laws and regulations drive up housing costs, making it far more expensive and time-consuming to build. Green, anti-carbon obsessions led to exorbitant costs for electricity that also becomes less reliable. Business taxes and regulations push away companies and jobs, sending unemployment skyrocketing. Plus, Democrats' rule lets lousy schools proliferate, allowing teachers' unions and other vested interests to run public education systems to suit their needs, not the kids. And left-wing social policies fosters rampant homelessness and public drug use, as well as exploding crime. The future looks grim in both states. New York is eyeing statewide tax hikes to fund Mayor Mamdani's socialist agenda, while the threat of a new wealth tax in California is already driving out top earners. By contrast, Texas and Florida consistently rank among the most business-friendly states. Neither has an income tax. Don't expect New York or California Democrats to copy that model. Instead, they're making sure they're held harmless by helping themselves to an ever larger share of the pie their policies are shrinking. In California, Democrats just rammed through a new gerrymandered openly designed to boost their share of the state's 52 House seats from 40 to as many as 48. That'll give them 92% of the seats, even though only 47% of voters are registered Democrats. New York Democrats have been playing the same game. They already hold 19 of the state's 26 seats and are now suing to steal New York City's only GOP seat, ludicrously claiming that a district including Staten Island and nearby parts of Brooklyn somehow, quote, dilutes black and Latino voting strength. This simply because it's repeatedly elects centrist Republicans when the incumbent representative Nicole Malatakis is Hispanic on her mom's side. Eventually, this strategy will fail. What does New York do if it finally drives the last of Wall Street away? California, if it kills Silicon Valley? You can only drive away so many Republicans and then independents before you've turned a once prosperous state into ruin. Comment from a viewer: New York State is among the bottom 5 states that have the lowest increase in wages as well as jobs. Go figure. Thank you very much. We got to take a short break. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be joining us after this.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and Horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
A concert of diva showstoppers featuring a Glinda and Elphaba from the Broadway company of Wicked.
Quite as popular.
Good Witch Bad Witch has been thrilling audiences coast to coast with their stunning vocals and playful banter. Good Witch Bad Witch this Thursday at the Clemens Center in downtown Elmira. Tickets at clemenscenter.org.
Imagine any tomorrow without you in it. So today I say, I love you. Get screened. Regular cancer screening saves lives. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
Going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. And look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, making a return so quick, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. Listen to this comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. When Phil gets in, let him know that we absolutely loved how he flash mobbed us with Joe. That was an unexpected, amazing treat. That was fun. Thanks for popping in on Friday.
Of course. I'm just kind of keep looking over my shoulder for Joe to
I know.
pop in on his way out.
I don't think he made the trip from Canasteo.
I don't think so either.
I hope not. I hope not. That's too cold for that this morning. We have so much to talk about. And one thing that kind of broke, I want to say it was Friday after you were on the program, which is this Local Cops, Local Crimes Act. We heard from Assemblyman Sempolinski a little bit earlier on. He released a statement about it. And we'll talk about energy and the budget and all that. But this is kind of breaking news. Your thoughts on Local Cops, Local Crimes Act?
Unfortunate. Not surprised. I think it's another act, an effort by Governor Hochul to virtual signal to the progressive and socialist left wing of her party, rather than to focus on the true need, public safety of the residents of New York State.
Yes.
I think you just have to look at the history of this issue. It's really started under Joe Biden, unchecked, unprotected borders, unvetted people coming through the borders. And you had, and I mentioned this before, you've had a merging of terrible, dangerous policy from criminal justice to immigration, converting. And what were those policies first at the federal level? An unchecked, uncontrolled, unvetted border.
Yeah.
You have a dangerous criminals coming across the border, illegal immigrants coming across the border. Many come to New York because we're a magnet, because we're a sanctuary state
city.
in a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state, virtual by executive order by Governor Cuomo, who basically told the no local cooperation with federal immigration and federal law enforcement. And then, so what happened? We had this individual come across the border, came to New York, committed a crime, because of our lax bail reform laws. Individual was released. Of course, the local law enforcement, even though this was a criminal, didn't reach out to our federal customs and border and our immigration officials to say, hey, we got an illegal immigrant who committed a crime. They should be out of the country. No, they just let the person go, didn't cooperate. That individual went down to Georgia, and what did that person do? Murdered Laken Riley.
I know.
And there's stories like that all over the country. A lot of people don't know who the other Laken Rileys are. You hear some names mentioned, but it's terrible. And then when you see these activists and agitators that are disrupting actual law enforcement investigations, and the tragedies happen, and these tragedies shouldn't happen, they're always able to remember their names, but never hear them utter the word Laken Riley or some of the other individuals we've lost due to the violent actions of illegal immigrants here illegally, dangerous, violent illegal immigrants. And I just don't understand it. And you look at how this is also festered even into our budget situation. In the past several years, not so much last year, we over $4.3 billion was allocated to fund services for migrants, hotels, food,
that credit card. Remember
the credit card, all those things.
Yeah.
And that $4.3 billion in that cycle is more than we spent on veterans, seniors, and the homeless combined. And with the cold situation we've seen out there, we think about our homeless here, and we do have homeless situations here in Corning and across the state. Wouldn't we want to have some of those resources focused to help those individuals? But yet they're handing out like blank checks to illegal migrants who come to our state and come to the city. And I think it's just unfortunate. And I just think that there is real, to me, it's like virtual signaling.
It is. Yeah.
To the progressive and socialist left, because she's afraid of that left wing of the party. Not only this, on a host of issues. I just don't understand it. And also, they're looking. I think the number I saw was another $2.5 billion through 2025. I mean, it's just like a blank check. And with all budget situations, they continue to spend money with no regard to whose people's money I think they ultimately figure it's the people's money and just think it's their money, and they can spend it on whatever they want.
And she, in this case, it kind of blows my mind, because you would think after Lee Zeldin did such a good job running on public safety, that you would think that she would skid into that. I mean, let's face it, one of the reasons Trump won president is because he was tough on illegal immigration, and he ran on that.
Right.
So I'm confused at what she thinks she can get out of this, unless, like you said, she's concerned of her own lieutenant governor and that primary challenge.
Yeah, it doesn't make rational sense to me. Why wouldn't you want cooperation? I mean, you have right now, the DMV can't cooperate with officials. Right. If someone pulls over and they're checking a plate, they won't provide that information. Traffic stops can be some of the most dangerous our law enforcement go through. So it makes no sense to me, and it's just a continued pattern of those states like New York, California,
we were just talking about
Illinois, Chicago. They want to just continue to protect. Ultimately, they're protecting dangerous illegal immigrants. That's what's happening. Rather than cooperating to get those individuals out of our state and out of our country.
Right.
And all what we're doing is we're jeopardizing the public safety of the residents here in our local communities.
We've got a couple comments from viewers. Good morning to all. Frank and Phil. Phil, do you think fracking will ever come back in New York State? We should change the name of all fossil fuels to life fuel, life affirming freedom energy, especially after recent weather conditions here in the Northeast.
Amen, my friend. Listen, I hope so. Unfortunately, the law in New York State, the way it is right now, is banned. What they should do, minimally, in my opinion, is do a pilot program in the southern tier. When we were talking about fracking back in 2010, 2011, 12, 13, we were talking about the southern tier.
Yeah.
We weren't talking. I mean, I represent the Finger Lakes. There's people talking about the Finger Lakes. We don't. I didn't want fracking in the Finger Lakes. They weren't going to frack in the Finger Lakes. The geography and the topography wasn't right for that. They weren't going to frack or drill in the New York City watershed or the Cats.
Right.
It was going to be done here in the southern tier because if you look, we had some of these companies are set up right in Chickamauga County, right over the border, and going to Pennsylvania. We had a tremendous amount of opportunity here in New York. We have an abundance of natural gas under our feet. We have an abundance of supply. And the price is sometimes, obviously natural gas changes with the market. Some of the problems we've seen with polar vortexes wasn't a lack of supply. It was a constraint. So it's not getting it to supply, and it's not allowing the supply to get, because they have an animosity towards natural gas, whether it's fracking, the pipelines, then air permits for new natural gas power plants. It's almost like a perfect storm of bad energy policy that we've talked about, because it started with the ban of fracking, then it started with this hostility towards approving pipelines to get the gas through New York State. You had the Nestle pipeline, which was thank God the DEC commissioner approved that this year. That's going to bring gas down to New York City and Long Island. In those areas, there's a huge demand. If the viewers don't recall, back then when they tried to approve it, they denied it, and then National Grid, who was doing the pipeline, said that we're not going to expand gas service to other people. What happened? Governor Cuomo threatened their license because he was a bully, and he was. We don't see him anymore, but that's
he's got a new radio show in New York. Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
You didn't catch it on Sunday?
No, I did not, and I probably won't catch any of them. But here's the thing: when he did that, he threatened their license. So National Grid said, "Okay, we'll figure out a way to get gas." So what are they doing? Still doing today?
Yeah.
Like hundreds of trucks, tanker trucks, lining up, coming in, emitting diesel emissions into the atmosphere. Because if they're concerned about diesel emissions, and then they come to and then they inject it into the underground pipeline manually. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
We have the constitutional pipeline, and because of that displaces, that affects the marketplace for the whole Northeast. So Massachusetts up in the Northeast, those areas are being having less supply come to their areas, and it's impacting the marketplace for them as well. So I just don't understand it.
No, I don't either. And I've heard a lot of people criticize the solar panels because when you drive by it, a place that has the solar panels up, it looks pretty bad, but I don't blame the farmers at all.
No.
Because they should have been making money off of fracking.
They should have.
They've had to pay these exorbitant taxes for how long? They can barely survive as farms. I don't blame them one bit.
No, and one of the concerns we always bring up, and even some of my Democratic colleagues and friends say, well, we don't want prime farmland. Well, neither do we, but what choice are you leaving the farmer? I mean, your taxes, regulations, not allowing them to frack their land, but also, the Farm Labor Act, that's one thing I point out to in 2009. Before we passed that, our farm labor cost as a percentage of net income was much higher than the national average, and it just expanded upon that when we implemented that. That's with the mandatory overtime, paying overtime, and even though they're providing other benefits to the farm workers working on those sites, and it just made costs much more exorbitant, much more difficult. So those farmers, you don't see the generational farm being passed on from generation to generation like you used to in the past. And some people want to do that, but the costs are so exorbitant, so they have to look for a lifeline to help pay their exorbitant property taxes and the costs that they're dealing with for their products and what they're providing. So yes, they look at that opportunity. But yes, our viewscape, our landscape, you see it, solar panels as far as the eye can see. Same with wind farms. And the thing about that, it's not reliable energy. It's not affordable energy. And I don't know.
It's taking up so much of our beautiful land and our landscape, like you said, that it's disheartening. But again, I do not blame anybody who has that land for doing it.
No, yeah, absolutely not. And even the Climate Action Council plan calls for 60 gigawatts of solar. Wow. 60 gigawatts. And for the viewer, again, and I always get an energy, a gigawatt is the equivalent of power in 750,000 homes. Yeah. Our current generating capacity in New York is 41 gigawatts. Okay. So the Climate Action Council's plan talking about 60 gigawatts of solar. Wow. You need 8 acres per megawatt. Wow. That's 480,000 acres of land. Now consider, solar and wind. I talked to someone. Nuclear is being talked about, and rightfully so. Yeah. I think that needs to be. We need to look at expand upon that. And why is nuclear far superior? Number one, it's reliable. Number two, it's dispatchable. And three, land use. Governor Cuomo, the genius he is, decided to shut down Indian Point, which provided 25% of the power to New York City. That was a 2,000 megawatt or 2 gigawatt nuclear facility on 240 acres of land. Fitzpatrick up in central New York is about 800 acres on 700 megawatts on 800 acres. Look at the energy density, but yet you need eight acres for a megawatt. I mean, the energy density, and then that doesn't work all the time.
We're going to run out of land.
And wind the same thing. So we have 30 megawatts. So that's just, I don't understand it. But again, you can't blame the farmer. But this is part of the energy plan. It's all about solar and renewables. And I get criticized because they say, well, you're a climate denier. Listen, climate's always changing. I do agree the climate is changing. But you need a balanced approach. And I'm not saying wind and solar shouldn't be a part of the portfolio. It should be a part of it, not the entire portfolio. Just like your stocks, cash, and bonds, and your 401k, or your 401k, you don't put it on stocks, cash, or bonds. Right. You diversify it to protect it. We need to do the same thing with our energy supply to make sure it's resilient, reliable, and there for when we need it. And that's why we need a balance. So yes, we need wind and solar and hydro, but you need nuclear, and yes, you need natural gas. And when we talk about natural gas, it's often referred to as a bridge fuel. It should be a permanent fuel. But so many people talk about it as a bridge fuel, but you don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one. Right. But that's exactly what my Democratic colleagues and the governor are doing with their energy policies and plans that they're continuing to move forward with them.
Think about if a Republican ever gets elected the governor again, how successful they'll be if they open up fracking. Right. What it would do for our economy, what it would do. I mean, it would be... It's almost like the Democrats are sitting on this huge victory kind of campaign if they wanted to, but some Republicans someday, it'll happen, will be governor, and they're going to have a huge economic boom.
Oh, it'd be a tremendous economic boom, and to be energy independent in our own state. Yeah, it would be tremendous.
All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lecom Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. A look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We got a couple comments that we're going to read through here. Mark writes, in North Carolina is the new go-to state. It's leading Florida and Texas, for the people that leave in mass exodus from New York. Comment from Ken, I saw a clip on one of the legacy media propaganda news channels where they followed the 5-year-old boy and his illegal immigrant father back to Minneapolis from Texas. What a load of baloney they were spinning. The father didn't abandon his son. He was just walking ahead of him to warn others of the dangerous ICE threat. The ICE agents rough-handled the small child, treating him like a criminal. The two were so happy to have a good meal on the plane after days of not having much to eat. The country cannot survive and prosper long-term until the legacy media is held accountable for lying to the American people. This propaganda-style news reporting must stop. Thank you, Ken. This one says, good morning, Frank. I will ask the Assemblyman the question, why doesn't President Trump's emergency on energy override Hochul's ban on natural gas? It's a fair question.
It's a fair question. Yeah. I wish it could.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there was you need the governor to cooperate.
Exactly.
And so something like that would go to the courts. But obviously, when Lee Zeldin became the EP director, we were asking him to weigh in on some of these decisions too.
Yeah, a comment from a different viewer. Phil, good morning, by the way. Well, good morning.
Morning.
But please push for upstate New York to become an independent state, apart from the shallow-thinking Democrat-run cities. Whether they admit it or not, they need upstate more than we need them. We have the energy and agriculture. I feel like we've talked about that since the first time we were on radio back in the day.
There's been legislation back from Randy Cool and Don Davison when they were in the Assembly and Senate. And my colleague David D. Patro has a different version of it, which was like, still one state, but 3 different territories, and that's been talked about. But it just seems really hard that would ever happen just because of the politics.
And the one-party rule right now, there's no appetite for it.
It's really difficult.
Yeah. Comment from Mark, I worked for the gas fields for 10 years before I retired. They also employed a lot of people, from mechanics to truck drivers, welders, just to name a few. Thank you, Mark. All right, we had just kind of a different question from a viewer. And they said, here's a question for Phil. The Democrats always want to save the planet by throwing money at a problem. We do see that. As I drive around the back roads of Steuben and Schuyler counties, I see that the special neighbors among us like to dispose of their unwanted tires on every lightly traveled roadway. That is true. I know that the counties offer a day or two disposal for a few tires, but it clearly isn't enough. Could you plead with the Albany Democrats to offer a better option? The drive-through fast food debris is one thing, but the tires are another matter, and it's discouraging. There's a lot of tires. You do see people throw them out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It shouldn't happen, but it could we could do a much better job on that for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So there was a committee meeting with Alexandra Fazzulo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She was addressing her concerns about the Fort Edwards solar complex being built around the environmentally sensitive species area in Fort Edwards. How is it allowed the Office of Renewable Energy, citing a bureaucratic authority, has decision-making power to supersede any DEC regulations?
It's very concerning. This Office of Renewable Energy sitting has been very concerning to us since it's been established. It was an action taken by the governor and the Democrats and the legislature to basically try to expedite renewable energy projects, wind and solar projects, and it's wrong. You look at this has totally evaporated and eroded local control and local input on top of it. And I'll get to the DEC part in a minute because there's another issue that my colleague Andrew Bailey brought up at the budget hearing recently, last week at the energy hearing. Just how this usurps local control, because usually projects in the past, local communities would have to approve them.
Right.
If you want them, the local community. And then we had Article 10, but Article 10 was a better process because at least you had 5 members from Albany who sat on the board, but you also had 2 local members, a county and a town official from that. At least they were part of the discussion. They were part of the process. Then when they created the Office of Renewable Energy City, that totally took any local input, local control. They say they listen, but they don't. If the town of Wayland didn't want, if someone proposed a wind or solar project for the town of Wayland and they didn't want it, animosity, no. But if the state decided they was going to go there, it would go there.
It's the same with the solar panels
Solar
and the boat and the battery.
The battery storage is the next big one I'm really worried about because of the fires and things like that. So then to double down on that either further, what they did is now the state took away the assessment valuation. Usually towns do their own assessment, their own assessors, legally trained to do assessments. They took away their ability to assess projects like that and put that in the hands of the state. So now you can now you have to deal with these projects coming in the community. Now you'll probably potentially get less money for them.
Right.
Fortunately, that hasn't been happening a lot here in Steuben County because I think our ID director's been really involved and engaged on making sure there's good pilots for those programs. And pilots are a way to address that. But if they want to circumvent that and say, I don't want to do pilots, they can try to pay less through this project. On the environmental side, it's a big concern. I wasn't at that meeting. That was a Senate hearing, energy hearing. But my colleague, Andrea Bailey, talked about this, and he talked about a project up in her district where they're actually drilling, horizontally drilling.
Oh, really?
For electricity technology for solar up in her district. So you can basically drill horizontally for electric. But not for gas. And she was questioning the DEC commissioner, what are you doing about this? Why don't you have any say in it? She goes, well, she's engaging. So that's the hypocrisy of the left and the progressives in Albany, that it's almost like wind and solar come as you may. Even Senator Harcum I saw said we need solar to solve the problems. And I remember the former energy or NCON chairman in the assembly, who's no longer there. He said at a hearing I was with him at, he goes, it makes no sense to me. We're clear cutting, and that's what has happened. Is we're clear cutting trees and forests to build solar. I mean, we learned in elementary school about photosynthesis. Trees absorb carbon dioxide. We want them to absorb that carbon dioxide. That's part of the process. But we're clear cutting them so we can put up solar panels. And then you don't even get into the whole part about the waste of solar when that lifespan used. What happens to them? There's no recycling program. There's no disposal program. Who bears the cost and burden of them? Ultimately, that's going to be borne by the local people.
Right. And safety, when we've seen some of the connections with these solar panels and China's involvement, that isn't even conspiracy theory. That was on the mainstream media, that they were putting extra piece in there where they could shut down the solar panel, almost a cyber attack type things. Okay, a couple comments from viewers. What's the real reason Stefanik dropped out of the governor's race? She was the best candidate. She was a great candidate, but we can move on from that. Ken writes, if a group of people wanted to shape the state to supply the type of energy that will make their investments and the investments of their benefactors soar, you need to, 1, scare the public on impending disaster, check, reduce the supply of a cheap, plentiful energy source, stop fracking, check, and limit the amount of cheap transmission sources, stop building new pipelines, check. Thank you, Ken. Hey, what did you think? I don't know if you saw this, Governor, oh no, we got to take a break. I'll ask you when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
An Albany buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bus.
Day 1 of the National Glider Competition.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Concert of Diva Showstoppers featuring a Glinda and Elphaba from the Broadway company of Wicked.
Quite as popular.
Good Witch Bad Witch has been thrilling audiences coast to coast with their stunning vocals and playful banter. Good Witch Bad Witch this Thursday at the Clemens Center in downtown Elmira. Tickets at clemenscenter.org.
What's our stories? The warmth of our laugh. or our family's secret sauce. We all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. A couple comments from viewers. With all the crazy spending towards the illegals by the Democrats, where is the public outrage? I'm thinking that if they open up fracking while Democrats are in control, I'm afraid it will just expand the crazy spending, not solve fiscal responsibility. Well, yes, if they have money, they're going to spend it, that's for sure, even if they don't have money. Sure. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Phil. Well, thank you. Always good to hear from Phil, even if I don't always like what he has to tell us. That is true. Okay, so on, I think it was Saturday, ex-Governor George Pataki, we mentioned it a little bit earlier on in the program. I want to get your thoughts. His theory is that Governor Hochul will raise New York State taxes after the election, kind of like what she did with the congestion tax.
I can totally see that happening, and the governor is focused on one thing, November of 2026. Yep. And also June, in case because she has a primary. But 2026 is her year to just worry about. You see with what she did with congested pricing in the last election, and then as soon as that was over, she implemented it. Right. You see how you know the new mayor in New York City wants to increase income taxes. The governor said we're not going to increase income taxes. We're not going, and she's been good to hold the line on that. But for how long? Until November. Especially because you have a major wish list. I mean, this massive free child care plan, and everything else he wants to do for free down there. And New York has to be a part of it. They have to approve the tax increase for down there. And that's just going to be another drain on more people leaving our state. But also on the energy policy stuff, she delayed the All Electric Buildings Act for about a year. The 100-foot rule, that's been delayed till December of 26, not December of 25 when it was supposed to take effect. Interesting. So you see these policies, you continue little delays of the electric school bus, but not enough. And so, yes, I think Governor Pataki is onto something that a lot of us have been observing as well. And you mentioned that with the electric buildings. That was so interesting to me because we've talked about it before, but they do their virtue signaling. They get their awards or pats on the back for doing that. And then the time starts ticking away. And then we looked at it and it was, in a month from now. And we brought this up Friday quickly. I think the same thing's going to happen with this lawnmower ban. So they want to ban lawnmowers by, 2029, I think it is? That's something like that. Yeah. And then you have people talking, and we mentioned it when you were in on Friday, the worst day you could release the press release, which was about snow blowers, was last Monday when our snowstorm, banning those as well. Yeah, who's going to be out there with an electric snowblower? I mean, are you kidding me? And the way these things last and work, nothing would you work well in the cold weather. No. You need something that's going to work, and electric's not going to work like a gas-powered mower or snowblower. Right. And that's just amazing to me, the policies that they're implementing. And we talked about the all-electric buildings. I mentioned 100 foot. The other one I forgot to talk about was the cap and invest. Right. And that's going to be a sticker shock for everyone, even by their own admission. This is on delay because there was a lawsuit. She delayed it. The administration delayed it, and then the environmental group sued, won in court. Right. The judge says you need to release the regs by February of this year. They appealed. The state, the Department of Environmental Conservation, the state appealed it, rightfully so. And I'm glad they did. But by their own admission, if this is implemented, it will increase gas prices at the pump for New Yorkers by 62 cents a gallon, and will increase natural gas home heating costs by 80%. That's their policy. They own that. They can't run away from it. They want to. So why is the governor just trying to delay it? Why not put it in her budget that she wants to pause that? Why not put in your budget that you want to delay the implementation of the CLCPA? Pause it, because there's a need to pause it. The New York Independent System Operators have said there's a reliability grade, both short-term and long-term shortage that needs to be gaps that need to be addressed. From a reliability and safety perspective. The PSC right now can pause it just based on safety and reliable service. Whether they will do it, I don't know, but I think that's the best thing. He could do it, and then he could take all the heat off the governor. Right. But it's the right thing to do. But they just keep pushing and pausing this stuff, one thing up. But these things are huge price tags with cap and invest, which I told you, all electric school buses, which is the mother of all unfunded mandates for our local property taxpayers. And the thing I've said over again, I think it's worth repeating. We're asking our school districts to convert their entire fleets by 2035.
Right.
State of New York doesn't have to convert their heavy-duty fleet to 2040, a full 5 years after our schools. So why are we asking our school districts and local property taxpayers to be the guinea pig for this social experiment?
Breaking news, Phil. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow after emerging, that's a change of pace, huh? From his den in Pennsylvania, meaning 6 more weeks of winter.
Why am I not surprised?
It sounds about right for this year. Hey, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this, but maybe a little bit. The budget overall, we talked about the state of the state. What did you think of Governor Hochul's budget proposal?
Well, obviously spent more than last year. We're talking about $260 billion, but I like to use more than $250 billion to put it in perspective. I mean, it's more than Texas, more than Florida. In some ways, it's more than them combined, but I think Texas is on a 2-year budget cycle.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable. It's uncontrollable spending and debt. And again, I just think my colleagues continue to think it's their money and forget it's the people's money. Now, don't get me wrong, when you spend that much money, there are going to be some good things that are going to come out of it when we have a final budget.
You would hope, right?
You would hope, but the problem is, even with the amount of money we're spending, there are those who are calling to increase taxes.
Yeah.
We do not have a revenue problem in this state. We have a spending problem in this state. So, but when I look at the analysis of the budget, I mean, the big battle is going to be about child care. I don't know if it's a battle. I mean, child care is a necessity. We need it. But the amount of money they're talking about free child care, I don't see how that's
such
sustainable.
a weird niche.
Yeah.
It's what is it, like 2-year-olds and only a certain. It's not a very big number what they ultimately showed what this kind of test is.
Yeah, it's concerning. And the thing I look at when I look at these policies that are really driven for downstate, what are we going to do? Because we have a child care, deserts up here in the southern tier, in the rural areas. We need to make sure there's a balance with that, and I'm just really curious to see how that plays out. So I think that, and will there be any type of tax increase in any of this budget? I don't think there will. I think the business taxes, she's extending the taxes that were put on place before. So I think those are in it. There are good things. I mean, I was just up at SUNY up at the Corning Community College on Friday. Our new president, Dr. Terrence Finley, great guy. He's going to do a great job and we were talking about some of these programs. Like SUNY Reconnect, I think is a really worthwhile investment. It's an investment that pays dividends. The initial plan was for these high-end demand fields like AI, technology, nursing, and now she's talking about proposing it to like logistics, air traffic controllers. Lord knows we need air traffic controllers, emergency management. I think that's great because now you're help getting to a population, especially with job retraining. I think those are dollars, but budgeting is about priorities. We have to prioritize the dollars we have. I'd rather see money go for those types of programs rather than $800 million for the Hollywood film tax credit to subsidize film tax credits in New York State. We started the budget hearings last week. We had agriculture and parks, we had energy and environment, and we had elementary and secondary education. This week, tomorrow, we have transportation, which will be a big issue. Wednesday's mental health, and Joe Sempolinski, who was here Wednesday, he's the ranker on mental health, and that's an issue we've been focusing on. And mental health is something that you have bipartisan support of.
Right.
There's a definite mental health problem we have in our communities all across the state, but we need to make sure there's a balance and make sure, especially in our rural communities, that there's a need there. And so that's the process over the next month. Tom O'Mara, our state senator, he's the Senate Finance ranker. He's doing yeoman's work on that committee because he has to sit through all these laborious committees. Now, I was on the energy one. That started at 9:30 and finished at after 9 p.m. at night. Wow. But that's what we do. We examine the budget. The governor's agency heads come in, and stakeholders come in, and we ask questions, try to get an idea. So at the end of that concludes at the end of February. Then probably the second week in March, the Senate and the Assembly will pass what they call their one-house budgets, which basically sets out their blueprint, their wish list. And those two budgets probably will have tax increases. They've always had them in our House. And we'll spend a lot more money than the governor even spent. And then from there, we'll have a joint conference committees where we go in and say a few words. It really kind of just window dressing. And then negotiate from there. But there's a lot of issues. I mean, on the transportation side, I would say that's something I want to look at. Tom will, especially on the CHIPS, the local funding
Yes.
for a local, which is critical, especially with the rising inflation rate for construction cost materials. I'm sure we'll be doing something locally with Chris, myself, Joe, with our local highway superintendents here locally, like we've done the past few years before we do one in Albany. Certainly the energy policy stuff we're looking at. The other area I'm looking in a couple weeks, the Commissioner of Corrections is coming in. What's going on with there? I mean, earlier this summer, we all know what happened last year with the worker stoppage. What you want to call it, a strike, a protest, call it what you want, but it came about because of the conditions that our brave men and women working in corrections facing. The HALT Act, which we've seen a rising spike of violence, inmate on staff assaults, even inmate on inmate assaults. There was an agreement last summer between the unions and the administration on that to make some modifications. So not a full-out repeal. I think there should be a full-out repeal, but my comment says at least it's a step in the right direction. It's an acknowledgement. She didn't put any of that in her budget. If it was a priority to her, why not put those in her budget? She's negotiating from a position of strength. And you see it. She fired 2,000 corrections officers, but yeah, we still got a lot of National Guards people inside our facilities and spending significant amounts of money.
I know the Empire Report reported on Friday that it was costing us about $1 billion already.
Yeah, it's costing a lot of money. It's going to cost us continued more money. And I think that budget hearing, a lot of those details will be ironed out. Those are some of the questions I look forward to talking to and questioning the public commission or the Commissioner of Corrections about. The death gamble is something I've been really pushing for a number of us, which would protect the pensions for our corrections officers, because if 25 years of retirement age when you can secure retirement, but say you decide to keep working past 25 because there's a shortage and you want to continue to help. If you were to die while you were working in service, your pension would not be secured for your spouse.
Makes no
All
sense.
they would do is get a death benefit 3 times your annual salary, which is not enough and not adequate. We could have done that. We passed it unanimously in our House several years in a row. Governor Cuomo vetoed. Governor Hochul vetoed, said we need to be part of the budget, but she never put it in her budget and never got negotiated in the budget, which I don't understand. It's just another continuous slap and insult on the brave men and women who work in these correctional facilities. There's so much more we could do from death gamble, HALT reform. Those things would go a long way for recruitment and retention, but apparently they don't seem to want to do that.
Nope. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
More cars. Lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
It's the home of Tivity. Release your inner audio engineer. Create with the 3D printer. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to your local library today.
It's going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. A look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
Don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
To the me I used to be, before talking to 988.
I felt alone.
I thought seeing hard things was just part of the job. I thought that having a bad day at work meant I was failing. But then I connected with someone at 988.
A real person texted back. Someone listened without judgment.
Now I know.
Now I know it's okay to let someone help me too.
And I'm stronger than I thought.
We hear you. Call, text, or chat 988.
From exceptional member service to easy, reliable, and secure digital banking and a deep commitment to the communities we call home, First Heritage is proud to be part of our members' everyday lives. That's why we're honored to be named Best Credit Union in the Twin Tiers 5 years in a row and Best Locally Owned Business in 2025. To our members, thank you for your trust, your loyalty, and your votes. And if you're not yet a member, visit fhfcu.org or stop by your local branch and see for yourself what makes First
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, something than Phil Palmisano. We got a lot of comments from viewers. This viewer writes, Phil seeing a shadow, not you, Puxatani Phil. Phil seeing his shadow in 6 more weeks of this kind of weather is just wrong. Keuka Lake is almost totally frozen. Yes, I think we're all getting a little sick of winter here. A comment from a different viewer. They're trying to make New York the East Coast California, and we all saw how that worked out and is working out. Thank you very much. Good morning, Frank and Phil. Like I said on Friday, look at Bill Gates and Larry Fink from BlackRock now have jumped off the climate crisis bandwagon onto the fossil fuel bandwagon because they're pushing for the AI data centers that they are heavily invested in. They know that they need the reliable fuels to power those centers. And if you look at the 270,000 acres of land that Bill Gates has purchased in 19 states across America, none of them are in the Northeast. Maybe it's because we have too many regulations. All right, comment from a different viewer. Please, Phil, we in upstate need to become an independent state before the idiots ruin us. Who cares about Albany? Please get the idea of becoming an independent state on the county ballot. And if I may suggest, just as Paul Revere cried, the British are coming, we could call our new state Revere. I like that. And finally, the reason the state's going to delay their all-electric vehicle enactment is to see how the local ones do. We're going to be the guinea pigs at our expense. Yeah, they are. The EV, the buses for schools, we are definitely going to be the guinea pigs. Speaking of energy, we talked about this quickly on Friday when you popped in when Joe was here. Tell us more about this $2.5 billion reserve.
Yeah, what happens is your viewers are paying not only supply and delivery, but you're paying taxes, fees, and assessments on your bill. It's assessments that you're charged that are collected that the utilities hold on to. And it's in the reserve accounts. And then NYSERDA has some that they're using for their programs. It's estimated over $2.4 billion. And then when NYSERDA wants the money, they call for it. It's been approved by the PSC through a raise. Mm-hmm. They call for it, and then the utility have to send that money to them so they can spend it on green programs. My argument that I question, and others brought up too, the NYSERDA chair and the PSC chairman, because they were both there at the same time. And I almost had to explain it to him because I don't understand. I go, what do you want? I basically walked in. He knows it.
Yeah.
They know it. It was kind of, I think, disingenuous.
Yeah.
I think give that money back, direct relief to the ratepayer. If you talk to the person watching your show today, they want immediate direct ratepayer relief now. They're seeing the rising utility bills. They're seeing the increasing rate cases that are going on that's being proposed right now. They go from one rate case to the next rate case, and it keeps going up. Costs keep going up. So that's something we could do to provide direct ratepayer relief. Rather, and I think if you ask someone, would you rather have direct ratepayer relief, or would you rather subsidize someone electric vehicle person? Would you rather have direct ratepayer relief or subsidize someone's electric snowblower purchase?
Right.
I think you would, or electric heat pump. I think people want ratepayer relief, and we have that funds that already been approved, already been paid by the ratepayer. We can give some back to them. Mm-hmm. It's just like when we talk about taxes. Let's give it back to the taxpayer because you're already paying too much. Let's give some of this back to the ratepayer and provide them some direct relief. Now, that's a positive thing we could do, but it doesn't seem like there's an interest to do it. But there are some states, I believe it's either Connecticut or Massachusetts, I brought that up to the hearing, Democrat governor, Democrat-controlled legislature, they're doing that. They're not spending the money on the green program. They're going to give it back to the ratepayer because they acknowledge there's a need to provide relief to the ratepayer. But unfortunately, my colleagues in Albany and the governor doesn't want to be able to step up. She could do this. She could lead this, put it in her part of the budget. We'll see what happens with her budget when she does her 38 amendments. But none of this is in her budget now.
No, and to your point, I just got so many great questions coming in. I appreciate those. Keep them coming in. We're nearly out of time. But yes, of course, it would be a great thing for them politically too.
Sure would.
Think if Hochul did that and gave you money back. There's going to be a lot of people, because she knows what she's doing when it comes to giving money away around election time.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Like the inflation rebate check.
Yeah. What'd you do with yours?
Yeah.
Went on vacation?
I blinked.
Yeah, exactly. It was gone my first time I went to the grocery store. Hi, Frank. Thanks for what you do. Well, thank you. The corrections officer in New York are still abused, working back-to-back shifts with no sleep. Thanks. Yeah, I know.
It hasn't gotten any better. It just continues, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, she fires 2,000 of them when they were just trying to stand up to protect themselves and their families.
And like they said, the inmates, I remember at the time I thought it was so forceful, this statement. The inmates get to see their families more than the corrections officers.
Oh, they sure do. They sure do. And they get unlimited phone and iPad use.
Yeah.
And corrections officers, when they go into their phone, they keep their phone in the car.
Yeah.
They can't bring their phone. They can't communicate with their family. Yep. If they're getting mandated for a double shift, they're going to have to call from the inside line and say something. It's crazy. It's like we're prioritizing criminals over law enforcement. You see it with our public policy, whether it's public policy, our policies, our criminal justice policies, our public protection policies favor inmates, favor dangerous individuals over public safety, crime victims, and law enforcement, whether the law enforcement on the street or law enforcement inside our correctional facility.
And now with what we talked about.
And with the ICE.
With ICE.
Yes.
I mean, full circle. And that's perfect because we are out of time. Can you believe it? That went fast. Don't worry, you didn't have to worry about Joe popping in. Joe must have stayed home, stayed in the warm.
I don't blame him.
But I just want to remind everybody, don't forget that today is the Corning Rotary Club Groundhog Day breakfast for dinner. It's tonight from 4:30 till 7 p.m. at the Corning Paint and Post High School cafeteria. $10 for a tall stack, $7 for a short stack. So don't miss out on that. And Rotary does such a great job. Phil, thanks for being on the program this morning, and we'll have to do this again real soon.
Sounds good.
Enjoy it in Albany. This is a fun time, right?
Yeah, I think of better ways to have fun.
Yeah. Think about us when you're in your 14-hour meetings, all right?
Right.
We'll be thinking of you.
See you, everybody.
All right. Join us tomorrow for Frankly Speaking. I look forward to it already.
Seven reasons to buy certified pre-owned vehicles at Chilson Wilcox Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
7-year or 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
3 months or 3,000-mile maximum care coverage.
Carfax Vehicle History Report.
Car rental allowance. 24-hour roadside assistance.
125-point vehicle inspection.
3-month Sirius XM radio.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Do you want free internet? Forever? You got it. Really. We mean it. Spectrum is offering free fiber-powered internet forever. Want it? Just call this number and switch 4 mobile lines to Spectrum for a lifetime of internet you never pay for. It's not a trial. It's an unprecedented offer. So we'll say it again. Free fiber-powered internet forever. Have you called yet? Because your internet is forever. But this ad ends now.